Why did have all these things happen to you?
I don't know. I looked up at the heavens and asked that.
If you had to outline your identity, where would you start and where would it go?
That's Sammy Davis Jr. Oh, that's the black guy that turned Jewish. Or that's the guy with the one eye.
Very little, actually. My mother, which probably accounts for the fact that, that you had not heard me talk about her. My mother and father separated when I was a kid.
Over 3 decades have passed since the untimely demise of Sammy Davis Jr. due to throat cancer, and in that time, his legacy has faced an unsettling fate. To many, he seems to have faded into obscurity or relegated to the status of a bygone relic, a mere footnote from another era, dismissed as a diminutive figure, standing at 5'5", whose existence appears incongruous with the enduring struggle for civil rights among African Americans. Yet, beneath the veneer of forgotten history lies a compelling narrative that unravels the complexities of Hollywood's ability to marginalize an artist based on both race and convictions. So, here is the tragic and controversial story of how Sammy Davis Jr. was betrayed by Hollywood. On a brisk December 8, 1925, in the heart of Harlem, Manhattan, a new chapter in the story of a remarkable individual began. This was the birth of Davis, a child born to the captivating Sammy Davis Sr., an African-American entertainer, and the rhythmic Elvira Sanchez, a talented tap dancer. Throughout his life, Davis proudly declared his mother hailed from San Juan, Puerto Rico, but the revelations in Will Haygood's 2003 biography, in black and white, painted a different picture. According to Haygood, Davis's mother was a New Yorker, born to Cuban parents with Afro-Cuban roots. Allegedly, Davis claimed Puerto Rican heritage to sidestep potential backlash against his Cuban roots that might impact his record sales. In the world of vaudeville, Davis's parents were stars, renowned for their performances. However, his early years were shaped by the care of his paternal grandmother, as his parents parted ways when he was merely 3. In a bid to keep custody of his son, Davis's father took him on tour, marking the beginning of a unique upbringing. Dancing became a second language for Davis, learned from his father and godfather Will Maston. The trio, comprising Davis, his father, and Maston, evolved into the Will Maston Trio, a constant presence in Davis's career. Shielded from racial prejudice by Maston and his father, Davis found refuge in their protective love. Yet, the Army years during World War II shattered this shelter, exposing him to the stark reality of discrimination. Davis recalled, "Overnight, the world looked different. It wasn't one color anymore." Davis made his cinematic debut at the tender age of 7, starring in Rufus Jones for President alongside Ethel Waters. His vaudeville journey commenced at the age of 3, accompanying his father and the Will Maston Trio on a national tour. Post-military service, Davis rejoined the trio and skyrocketed to fame after a standout performance at Ciro's following the 1951 Academy Awards. Broadway beckoned and Davis answered. Mr. Wonderful in 1956 marked his starring role, and in 1964, he earned a Tony Award nomination for the groundbreaking Golden Boy, featuring Broadway's first interracial kiss. While Davis's career experienced a lull in the late 1960s, the 1972 release of The Candyman catapulted him to the top of the Billboard Hot 100, earning him the moniker Mr. Show Business in Las Vegas. Davis was a beloved entertainer, but he still faced the overt racism that was prevalent at the time. Unfortunately, on November 19, 1954, in the quiet town of San Bernardino, California, Sammy Davis Jr.'s life hung in the balance as he embarked on a return journey from Las Vegas to Los Angeles. The year prior, he had forged a camaraderie with comedian Eddie Cantor, who had gifted him a mezuzah. Davis, considering it a talisman of good fortune, usually wore it around his neck. However, destiny took an unexpected turn on the night of the accident. The one evening he forgot to wear the protective charm. The incident unfolded at the junction of U.S. Route 66, where Cajon Boulevard met Kendall Drive. A driver, having missed the turn at the fork, reversed her car into Davis's lane, resulting in a collision. The consequence was severe. Davis lost his left eye to the distinctive bullet-shaped horn button, a standard feature in 1954 and 1955 Cadillacs. Actor Jeff Chandler, a close friend, expressed his willingness to sacrifice one of his own eyes to prevent Davis from total blindness. For at least 6 months, Davis adorned an eye patch, becoming an emblematic image featured on the cover of his debut album and even making appearances on television, notably on What's My Line, with the patch prominently displayed. Eventually, he transitioned to a glass eye, a constant companion for the remainder of his life. During his hospital stay, Eddie Cantor shared insights with Davis about the parallels between Jewish and Black cultures. Despite being born to a Catholic mother and Baptist father, Davis, who was initially raised Catholic, delved into the study of Jewish history as an adult. The culmination of his exploration led to a significant decision in 1961. Davis embraced Judaism, a faith he would adhere to for the rest of his life. Intrigued by a passage from Abram Sachar's A History of the Jews, describing the enduring spirit of the Jewish people, Davis found resonance. The Jews would not die. 3 millennia of prophetic teaching had given them an unwavering spirit of resignation and had created in them a will to live which no disaster could crush. This episode marked a pivotal moment in Davis's life as his religious choice was widely mocked by fellow entertainers and derided by Christian African Americans who felt that Davis had abandoned his race. However, Davis, with his iconic quip, "I'm a one-eyed N who's Jewish," navigated the complexities of identity and challenges with humor. In any case, the accident did nothing to curtail Davis's charisma and appeal. Hollywood starlet Kim Novak certainly noticed him. She was about to film Hitchcock's Vertigo when she saw Davis perform in a Chicago nightclub. Though they didn't speak much at the time, Davis wanted to get to know the actress. His friends Tony Curtis and Janet Leigh obliged by inviting both of them to a party at their house. Soon afterward, there was a blind item in a gossip column: which top female movie star, Kim Novak, is seriously dating which big-name entertainer, Sammy Davis. This bit of idle gossip was far from harmless. An affair between Novak and Davis had the potential to destroy both of their careers. In 1957, interracial marriage was illegal in half the states. Most Americans were against it. A Gallup poll from 1958 showed that only 4% of Americans approved of interracial marriage. On top of that, the United States Supreme Court had only recently ordered the desegregation of public schools, and the showdown in Little Rock, Arkansas, over the integration of the city's Central High School would occur the following year. The national atmosphere was fraught with racial tension. As a Black man, Davis had been stopped from dating white women before, but this time was different. Novak was a movie star. That year, newspapers were calling her the hottest female draw at the box office, thanks to films like The Man with the Golden Arm and Pal Joey. Columbia Pictures was her to replace Rita Hayworth, who studio head Harry Cohn disliked. As the latest Hollywood-esque goddess, Novak was potentially worth millions. When he saw the gossip item, Davis called Novak to apologize for putting her in an awkward position with the studio. According to his autobiography Sammy, Novak replied, "The studio doesn't own me," and invited him over for spaghetti and meatballs. Soon after, they were dating. Their affair continued for most of 1957. Davis and Novak were aware of the risks they were taking, but that, it seems, made the relationship more exciting. "She hadn't thought about me any more than I had thought about her, until it was forbidden," Davis wrote in his autobiography. "Then we became conspirators, drawn together by the single thing we had in common: defiance." Arthur Silber, a close friend and companion of Davis, often chauffeured the couple to a rented beach house in Malibu. They went to great length to hide their relationship. Davis would sometimes lie on the floor of the car under a blanket to avoid being seen with Novak. "It was like we were in the FBI or something," Silber said in an interview. "I would drop him off in front of her house in Beverly Hills, and we would set up a time or a day for me to pick him up." Davis also had a private phone line installed at the Sands Hotel in Las Vegas where he worked, so he could talk to Novak without the hotel switchboard listening in. In December, Novak went home to Chicago for the holidays while Davis stayed in Las Vegas. He missed Novak so much that he found a replacement for his act and flew overnight to see her and meet her parents. Irv Kupcinet of the Chicago Sun-Times heard about the visit and mentioned it in his column. Gossip heated up. There was a rumor Davis and Novak had taken out a marriage license. Kim Novak is about to become engaged to Sammy Davis Jr., and Hollywood is aghast, reported the London Daily Mirror. When Cohn found out, he became enraged that his star, who he regarded as property he'd invested in, was dating a Black man. The next morning, while flying to Los Angeles, he had the first of several heart attacks that would soon K him. By all accounts, Cohn was a ruthless studio chief who admired Benito Mussolini and had ties to the Chicago mob. He even wore matching ruby friendship rings with gangster Johnny Roselli. There are various accounts of what happened next, but what's clear is that Cohn took out a mob hit on Davis. Gangster Mickey Cohen found Davis's father and passed on the threat. Silber was there when Davis received the phone call. They said they would break both of his legs, put out his other eye, and bury him in a hole if he didn't marry a black woman right away, Silber revealed. He was scared as hell, same as I was. Novak, who has consistently asserted that her relationship with Davis was never anything other than friendship, has also said the studio ordered her to stop seeing him. They also placed guards around her house. And I thought, this is ridiculous. I don't want to live like this, she told Larry King in 2004. I couldn't see what was wrong, do you know? What was so terrible? For his part, Davis went to his friend, gangster Sam Giancana, for protection. Giancana told him that he could protect Davis in Las Vegas and Chicago, but he had no reach in Hollywood. The threat loomed over him. The wedding was the only solution. Soon after, in January 1958, Silber was sitting on the bed in the Sands Hotel polishing a cowboy boot when he noticed Davis sitting on the other bed, paging through an address book. I said, "What the F are you doing?" Silber asked, and he said, "I'm looking for someone to marry." The woman he chose was Lorraine White, a black singer who worked across the street at the Silver Slipper. She and Davis had gone out a few times in the past. Now Davis offered her a lump sum of between $10,000 and $25,000 to marry him and act as his wife. She agreed. In pictures of their Las Vegas wedding, White and Davis drink out of an oversized martini glass beside a tiered cake with the word happiness written on it. But Silber, who drove the couple to their wedding suite, recalls that Davis drank heavily all evening and became so distraught in the car that he tried to strangle White. Silber restrained Davis and carried him to his room. Silber revealed, "He was so hurt. His quote to me as he ripped my coat apart at the shoulder was, 'Why won't they let me live my life?'" Silber remembers that Davis was particularly distraught that night at the hotel. "I walked back into the bedroom just as he was putting a gun to his head," says Silber. "I jumped on him and I got the gun away from him. Then I sat on him with my knees on his shoulders until he passed out." By September, newspapers were reporting that White and Davis were getting divorced. One day, a couple of years later, Sammy and Silber were having lunch at 20th Century Fox when a woman walked in. She was tall and lovely with shiny blonde hair and a husky voice. Davis promptly introduced himself. Her name was Mai Britt, a 26-year-old Swedish actress who was filming a remake of The Blue Angel. She and Davis started seeing each other. Soon he proposed marriage and she accepted. An outsider to American racial politics, Britt didn't see why race should keep her away from the person she loved. On June 6, 1960, while in England, Davis announced their engagement to the press. The public went mad. Bert Boyer, a close friend who co-wrote Davis's autobiography, says in an interview, "When they got engaged, all hell broke loose. The studio immediately canceled Britt's contract. They assumed that she was no use in the box office married to a black man." The next day, British fascists picketed the theater where Davis was performing in London, booing, shouting, and carrying signs saying, "Go home, N," and other racial slurs. Davis told the press, while blinking back tears, that it was, quote unquote, "the most savage racial attack I have come across." Back in America, Davis and Britt were inundated with hate mail. Criticism came not only from white people, but also from black people who had long accused Davis of race trading in articles with headlines like, "Is Sammy ashamed he's a N?" There were bomb threats at the theaters where Davis performed in Reno, San Francisco, and Chicago. At the Lotus Club in Washington, D.C., the American Nazi Party picketed outside, but the audience gave Davis a standing ovation when he walked on stage. Davis received so many death threats that he hired 24-hour armed guards. He worried his wife would be attacked if they were seen together, so they rarely went out. When they did, Davis carried a gun or a cane with a knife concealed in the tip. May was almost like a prisoner in a mink-lined cell, Boyer revealed. "I don't know of a time when they could walk out on the street and have fun and be happy like anyone else." Meanwhile, Davis worked for the civil rights movement. According to Emily Raymond, author of Stars for Freedom, Hollywood, Black Celebrities, and the Civil Rights Movement, Davis raised approximately $750,000, about $5.6 million today, for organizations like the NAACP and Martin Luther King Jr.'s Southern Christian Leadership Conference. He also campaigned for John F. Kennedy during his 1960 presidential campaign, performing in 20 cities, usually alongside the rest of the Rat Pack. But at the Democratic National Convention in Mississippi, he was booed while singing the national anthem, an incident that left him near tears. After he won the election, Kennedy snubbed Davis on 2 occasions. Davis had been invited to Kennedy's inauguration gala and was so proud to be going that he had a special suit made. Britt bought a Balenciaga dress. But 3 days before the inauguration, Kennedy's secretary called to say that the president was uninviting them. The move was political. The president-elect had won the election by a slim margin, and he didn't want to alienate Southern congressmen by presenting them with Davis's controversial marriage. Davis was deeply hurt and embarrassed by the snub. Then, in 1963, Davis and Britt were invited to a White House reception for African-American leaders. Raymond said in an email that when Kennedy saw them there, he hissed at his aides to get them out of here and hurried the couple away from photographers. Davis wasn't the first celebrity in an interracial marriage. Singer Harry Belafonte married a white woman in 1957, and in 1912, boxer Joe Jackson was jailed for dating a white woman. But no other prominent interracial marriage received as much publicity as Davis and Britt. "I was a little kid when it happened," said Gerald Early, editor of the Sammy Davis Reader. "Everybody talked about it. I do think it had an impact. It was one of those things in the 60s that was part of opening up American society a little bit. He and Mae Britt were pioneers in making America more accepting of interracial marriage." In 1967, the Supreme Court ruled in Lovingverder, Virginia, that it was unconstitutional to ban interracial marriage. The culture shifted quickly alongside the legal changes that followed, and successful movies featuring interracial romance like Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. Davis himself had also taken on interracial relationships in the 1964 Broadway musical Golden Boy, where he played a black boxer in love with a white woman. Davis and Britt divorced in 1968. The marriage lasted 8 years and resulted in 3 children. According to Davis's biographer Gary Fishgall, Davis and Novak met again at a ball after the 1979 Oscars. They danced together. Afterward, Davis was amazed. No one had taken a picture of the two of them. No one even cared. Once, when Britt and Davis were first married, Boyer and his wife were sharing a hotel suite with them in Miami. Martin Luther King Jr. came to visit Davis in the hotel, and Boyer said, "Martin, where are we racially?" Davis interjected and said, "I'll tell you where I am. I'm in the best suite in this hotel, but I can't walk down the street with my wife." King replied with the words of a slave preacher, who he would later quote in a speech to the New York Civil War Centennial Commission in 1962. He said, "We ain't what we ought to be. We ain't what we want to be. We ain't what we gonna be. But thank God, we ain't what we was." In August 1989, Sammy Davis Jr. found himself grappling with unsettling symptoms, a persistent tickle in his throat, and an inexplicable loss of taste for food. These ominous signs led to a sobering diagnosis. A malignant tumor had taken residence in Davis's throat. A heavy smoker, Davis had long indulged in up to 4 packs of cigarettes a day, contributing to the emergence of his perilous condition. Confronted with the harsh reality that surgical intervention offered the best chance of survival, Davis faced a difficult choice. Opting to preserve his distinctive voice rather than sacrifice a portion of his throat, he embarked on a course of definitive radiation therapy. However, the cancer proved resilient, leading to the eventual removal of his larynx in the face of a recurrence. Davis emerged from the hospital on March 13, 1990, facing the challenging road ahead. Tragically, the battle with throat cancer reached its somber conclusion on May 16, 1990, when Davis passed away at his Beverly Hills home at the age of 64. The final resting place for the iconic entertainer became Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California. In a poignant gesture of tribute, the neon lights of the famed Las Vegas Strip dimmed for 10 minutes on May 18, 1990, just 2 days after his demise. In the aftermath of his passing, Davis left behind an estate estimated at $4 million, bequeathed predominantly to his widow, Alta Weiss Davis. However, financial shadows loomed large, as Davis carried a substantial debt of $5,200,000 to the IRS. With interest and penalties inflating the amount to over $7 million, Alta Weiss found herself shouldering the burden of his fiscal obligations due to her co-signature on his tax returns. Forced to liquidate his personal possessions and real estate, Alta Weiss received support from industry peers like Quincy Jones, Joey Bishop, Ed Asner, Jane Meadows, and Steve Allen, who rallied together in a fundraising concert at the Sands Hotel in Las Vegas. The posthumous echoes of Davis's financial struggles painted a bittersweet epilogue to the life of a legendary performer. Anyway, that's it for this video, folks. Bye.